Hi, I'm Liz and welcome to my channel, Creating Inner Beauty. Today I thought it would be fun to take a look at my current tarot deck collection as of February 2021. Last week I posted my Oracle deck collection, and this week I thought I would do my tarot deck collection just so I can have a little bit of a record of what my collection looks like right now and hopefully be able to look back at it in the future and see how it's grown and changed. And I know I like watching deck collection videos, so I was hoping that there might be some people who would also enjoy seeing my collection as well. Now, much like my Oracle deck collection, my tarot deck collection is relatively small and mostly mass market. I have a couple of independent decks, and I have a little bit of a variety of, not everything, but of a good number of kinds of decks. So I think I'm actually going to start with my very first tarot deck, and I've probably had this for 15 or 20 years, and I keep it in this little bag I bought at the time when I first got the deck. And it is my original, I totally just blanked on the name, Rider-Waite deck with the plaid backs. And I edged it, I tried to edge it to match the blue in the back. And the Pamela Coleman Smith art. And I don't always read reversals, but I find with Rider-Waite decks, I tend to read reversals. And this is just sort of the classic tarot deck. It's what I learned on, what I took my first classes on. It's what was recommended to me. And I really felt like once I learned this deck well, I could definitely generalize to anything else. So for that reason, I really enjoy keeping this deck around, and it has sort of sentimental value. Also, I find it's like a good one if I'm reading for a client and they want a very sort of like classic tarot experience. I feel like a lot of people recognize these cards, and it makes them feel like, yeah, I'm getting a tarot reading, and they're excited about that. So that's kind of fun. So I think the second deck I ever got I was just kind of starting at the time to realize that there were different kinds of art styles to decks. And at that time, 15, 20 years ago, I don't think there was nearly as many as there are now, but there was like a little bit of a selection. So I got this, what is it called? Art Nouveau deck. It's by US Games. And these are the backs. It's not etched, it's just white. And it's in this sort of like Art Nouveau style. And it was kind of funny because like once I got it, since I was still new to tarot, it was a little difficult for me to read. So I sort of put it aside and hadn't touched it for all this time really. And it wasn't till recently where I picked it back up, of course lost a card, where I was like, hey, I can actually read this pretty easily now. And so it was a nice confirmation of my improvement and development as a reader. So some of the images and the art is a little romance novel-y, but I'm kind of here for it. I like a good romance novel, I'm not gonna lie. So that's the Art Nouveau deck. Okay, and then where did I go from there? Let me go to this deck, the Ancient Egyptian Tarot. Now, I'm half Egyptian, and I've always felt very connected to ancient Egypt and learning about its mythology and history and all of that kind of stuff, and since I was a kid. So I believe this tarot was a gift from my boyfriend at the time, who was perhaps slightly amused by my interest in tarot, but very supportive. And who makes this? It's by Clive Barrett. And it says Thorson Element, published by Element. These are the backs, beautiful hieroglyphic backs. And I actually made it to Egypt on a goddess tour a couple of years ago, and it was a wonderful experience. So sometimes looking at these cards sort of brings back that energy as well. Hanged Man. So it has very intricate art. I actually haven't used this deck that much recently, but now that I'm looking at it, I definitely am going to. It just kind of gives you a little feel. Okay, just bring back that High Priestess card. It's really beautiful. Isis there. Okay, so those were my, one more. Last oldest deck. I think after I got my initial Rider-Waite deck, the one with the plaid back, some time passed, life got busy, I stopped doing tarot for a little while, and I decided to take another class in it. And but I was kind of like wanting to get a new deck and maybe looking for some kind of different colors in it, etc. But I wanted to stick with the Rider-Waite just so I could continue learning and sort of mastering the basics. So then I got this Universal Weight Tarot by US Games. It has sort of the starry backs, and I liked the backs better of this one. And then the coloring, I think, is a little softer, a little less bright. Or perhaps brighter, but less, like not so heavy on the yellows. So I really liked the coloration in this deck. So I started reading with that one. And once again, very similar to the first one. So it was great to continue learning on it. And once I felt like I kind of mastered the meanings of these cards, I felt like I could then generalize to other cards, which was great. Okay, so now, so then there was a pretty big gap of time in my life where I didn't do tarot and I wasn't really focused on it that much. Mostly because life and work got really busy, and there's a lot of things I was juggling. But recently I've come back, of course, to the tarot world, and I discovered tarot on YouTube, which is an amazing thing. Like people sharing all of their beautiful decks and readings and their experience with the tarot and their like lovely thoughts about it, and just it's a whole world opened up for me. So I've recently purchased some more decks within the last several years. I'm trying to decide where to go first. Okay. I would say probably these in my history are the next ones after that first batch, but the first of my most recent batch of tarot cards. And I actually wasn't even sure whether or not I should include these two because technically they say they're oracle decks, but they're based on the tarot. This is the Psychic Tarot by John Holland. And it's a 65 card deck. And some of the cards are renamed and sort of reconfigured. But I think it got me back into the energy of working with the tarot. And once I had worked with these cards for a little while, then going back to the Rider-Waite and then expanding to other kinds of tarot decks became really approachable. So I think that they deserve a mention somewhere. So these are the backs, and these cards are super beat up. I went through a period where I was like using them a ton, and I'm not like super delicate with things, so they're a little beat up. But this is what they look like. And so you'll see that they have keywords for each of the cards. This, for example, accelerated motion would be the 8 of Wands in a Rider-Waite deck. This is I believe this is the Star card, Light. This is the Devil card, Temptation. This is the World card, Universe, Reinterpretation. So I feel like this deck is really nice if you have a basis in the Rider-Waite, but you want something a little softer, or you want those keywords to help clue you into what's going on. I also went through sort of a little bit of period of anxiety at some point in my life, and sometimes the traditional Rider-Waite would be a little bit too much for me. So having a deck like this where the keywords were kind of gentle was really nice to get in the energy of reading for myself, but not feel really like worried by the 10 swords and, you know, the figures back and the 10 of swords, or the 3 swords and the heart and the 3 of swords. So it was kind of a nice like re-entry way back to working with the more traditional tarot. And then because I had this deck, or got this deck and I enjoyed it, I did get the second by John Holland, the Psychic Tarot of the Heart. And this is a little bit more relationship focused. I haven't used this deck as much as the first one. I think I'll actually bring it out to do some relationship work soon. But these are the backs. And then same idea, but a little bit more focused on interpersonal connection. So refusing to see, for example, would be the 2 of swords. Lead, I believe, is the Emperor. Well-deserved reward, I believe, is the 9 of Pentacles. Change of focus, change your focus. 5 of Cups, I believe. So you can kind of see there's that connection to the Rider-Waite interpretations, but with a focus on messages that are a little soft and a little bit more connected to interpersonal relationships. Okay, actually, of course, I already skipped one deck, so I want to go back to it. This is the Pocket Goddess Tarot. So it's a small version of the Goddess Tarot by Chris Walder. And I got this deck sometime in that original batch of decks I got when I first started learning. And so all of it's a little bit pip deckish. There's a figure in the cards, but the primary kind of focuses on the symbols in it, in the minors. But the majors are represented by a goddess. So for example, Judgment is Guinevere. Balance, which is Temperance, is Yamanya. Wisdom is Sarasvati. So yeah, I really appreciate connecting with goddess energies. I really enjoy learning about them and goddess mythology and spirituality. So I really appreciate having this deck. Okay, so that was a little flashback back to that time period. Now let me go toward the decks I have purchased a little bit more recently. Now I think, I think my next purchase was the Fountain Tarot. I know this is the mass market edition by Roost Books, I guess. And these are beautiful cards. I haven't used them a ton, but I think they're really pretty. The backs, and then they have this really nice silver gilding. And then, so trying to catch the lighting. I'm sure everyone has seen this deck before, but just kind of show a couple cards. I really like this deck if I'm wanting a very sort of like neutral reading. So if, for example, some of those earlier tarots have kind of changed the keywords to be a little softer, I feel like the pictures, the images, the colors just sort of lend itself to a neutrality in the interpretation of the cards, while still holding, sorry, the lighting, while still holding to the Rider-Waite meanings. I've also had good experience reading with this deck for male clients. It's not too female focused. I have like a lot of goddess decks, so I like to also balance that out by having some other decks that have a more neutral, gender neutral, or even masculine energy, so that I can, you know, help find a deck that's going to connect to the client in front of me. Okay, the Fountain Tarot. All right, and then I think after that, here comes my first independent deck. And then I started like discovering that there are like all of these independent decks that were being created. No, this is not the next one, is it? Okay, it's either the Moonchild Tarot or the Crystal Unicorn Tarot was my next deck. Let me show you the Moonchild one. I really love this deck. As I was mentioning, I've always been fascinated with ancient Egypt, and I really connect to that energy, that lineage. It's part of my culture as well. And so and also love divine feminine energy. So everything about this deck just like resonated. So here are the beautiful backs with the gold details, matte gold gilding. I know everybody's probably seen this deck, but just to kind of show a few cards, like the beautiful colors. And we have sort of the combination of the ancient imagery with the female figures. Beautiful Lover's card. And, you know, I really debated whether or not to get between the Star Child and the Moonchild decks. Of course, I would like to have both, but, you know, I try to be cautious in my deck purchasing. So when I saw, though, the images of like how much there were like the ancient Egyptian imagery in it, and then sort of the more focus a little bit on connecting with the moon, which I really resonate with as well. And the deck just feels a little bit more earth-based to me, and I appreciate that energy. I am an earth sign, or I'm actually on the cusp of Taurus and Gemini, so I have a little bit of air, but mostly earth, a lot of earth. So the fact that this deck felt a little bit more grounded to me was really what made it resonate. Okay. It's just beautiful and nice and thick and lovely to work with. Okay, and then we'll go for the Crystal Unicorn Tarot. So this is my other independent deck by Pamela Jen. And if I didn't say before, by the way, the Moonchild Tarot is by Danielle Noel. And I really like this Crystal Unicorn Tarot deck, actually. At first, when I purchased it, I felt a little bit like, not quite silly, but it's definitely, you know, unicorns and cuteness. And I felt like young, like it was for my inner child. But it's actually a really pretty deck. The colors are beautiful. It feels lovely. It's this like smooth matte finish. The cards are thick, but not so thick that you can't easily shuffle them. And I actually really like using this with client readings. If it's a first time for a client to get a reading and they're maybe a little nervous, just bringing this out and letting it be playful and letting, you know, as soon as they see that it's like unicorns with crystals and it's these pastel colors, I can immediately see them relax, yet the messages are very clear. I can read it really easily. It's like using a Rider-Waite deck for me, but with just that little bit of softness and gentleness and fun that I really enjoy. So I love having this deck as part of my collection. And I know that there's now a panda-based deck And maybe I will get that one at some point too. But I really enjoy the unicorns for now. Okay, so let me see where we're going to go from here. Okay, and then after that, I then got, we're going in a totally different direction now. And this is like pretty typical of me to have like very varied type of things in my closet, in my life. I went for the Tarot of the Vampires, and I partially got this deck because I heard such amazing things about the guidebook. Also, I really enjoy watching Racine from Moon 513, I think her channel name is. I love listening to her talk about tarot and witchy things and all good stuff. And so after I had been watching her for a little while, I decided that I wanted to do a little like advanced tarot refresher course. So I reached out to her and she gave me like a little tarot study course, and I wanted to use the Tarot of the Vampires because I knew that that was her favorite deck, and I felt like it was a kind of deck I had never really worked with before. So I thought that would add an interesting aspect and a bit of variety to my experience with tarot. So these are the backs, full rows, and then I edged it in black recently, which I think makes it look super nice. I feel like it looks that much more expensive, edged in black. And then it's definitely very like gothic. Also kind of has like a little bit of a romance novel-y art, fantasy art kind of focus, but I am okay with that. And the guidebook really is great. It's very in-depth, helps you think about a lot of different things and aspects of each card meaning. It's also not exactly a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, although there are some, connections and parallels. So I feel like learning about some other ways of looking at each of the cards really kind of has helped round out my reading experience. Okay. So that's the Tarot of the Vampires by Ian Daniels. Okay, now where do we go from here? Oh, okay. So then I think my next deck is the Light Sears Tarot by Chris Ann. And this is the mass market edition as well by Hay House. This is one of my favorite decks to use. I feel like the art is so beautiful. Clients really respond to it well. The imagery is so vivid and beautiful that it really stirs my intuition, and it also very much, I feel like clients themselves almost see things in the cards and oh wow, there's a owl in this card, and that really resonates with me because that's a spirit animal for me, etc. So just the fact that the imagery is so beautiful and complex really helps them stand out. I'm also considering edging this one in black too, but I haven't decided yet. Okay, that's the backs. And here are the cards. Beautiful strength card. Okay. So that's that. And then because I got the Light Sears Tarot and I really enjoy using it, I also got the Muse Tarot, also the mass market edition. I super love the backs on this sort of flowery pattern with the seafoam green or mint green. And then the colors are so vivid and beautiful. I haven't used this deck as much. I haven't connected with it quite as much, but it has wanted to come out a couple times with clients, usually people who are very creative and kind of need to connect to that muse energy. And it's lovely for that. So really enjoy having both of those in my collection as well. Okay, I also have, although it's not in front of me and I don't know why, I also have the Wild Unknown Tarot, the mass market edition. It's not in front of me. I'm not exactly sure where I put it, but I do have that one. It was also, probably along with the Fountain Tarot, one of my recent deck purchases. Okay, then I also have the Modern Witch Tarot. I love this deck. I think it's so fun. I love, kind of like the Crystal Unicorn Tarot, I love that it's like a very close interpretation of the Rider-Waite Smith. So it's just super easy to read, but it's updated. There's a focus on female characters in it. And the imagery is fun. The colors are fun. It's diverse. I just think it's such a wonderful modern interpretation, and my female clients and gender fluid clients really enjoy when I bring this deck out. Okay, and that is, if I didn't say that before, the Mass Market Edition by Liminal 11. Now, I know that there's a thing with the cardstock, and that may have changed. I think I have the one with the thicker cardstock, but it doesn't really bother me. I don't usually riffle shuffle. I usually overhand sort of shuffle like this. So it's typically not that big of a deal to me. Although occasionally it is fun to riffle shuffle. Okay. Now, oh, here's my Wild Unknown. It's right in front of me. I won't spend too much time with this because I'm sure everybody has seen this. But Wild Unknown by Kim Kranz, and the Mass Market's Harper 1. And the backs are like this. And also beautiful smooth cardstock. It's so interesting to feel the difference between what decks feel like now versus like what they felt like when I was first learning about tarot and first being drawn to tarot, and the differences between the shiny cardstock and the matte cardstock, etc. Just fascinating. Okay, so got this beautiful artwork. Sorry, I keep shaking the camera. Now this deck, I wouldn't say it's my personal favorite, but I think the art is beautiful, and it really comes out when there's a client that connects a lot to animal and earth energy. And invariably when I feel guided to use this deck, it's because there's some sort of animal symbol in it that's really going to jump out at the client and resonate with them. So I find that really useful to have for my readings. Okay. Okay, heading down the home stretch now. This was a complete impulse purchase. And this is the, hold on, the Magical Nordic Tarot. And it's by Jane Wallace, and art by Tracy Eamon, I believe. has this kind of cool 2-part box. Now, I do like this deck. I don't regret the purchase. I think I was in a mood and I wanted to buy something, and this was a very inexpensive deck. I found it at Barnes & Noble, and I liked the pictures that they had on the back of the box. I was like, oh, okay, I'll check this out. I etched it in like a purple, which I thought was kind of fun. These are the backs, which I also think are super fun. And I really like the majors and the softness of the colors. And this is also a really nice deck so far for working with people it's their first tarot reading, because it has the keywords on it. And the keywords are somewhat soft. And I think it just really helps just sort of alleviate people's anxiety around getting a reading, which I definitely have noticed is a thing that sometimes happens. But I will say it's quite pippish for the minors. And so that's been challenging me kind of in a good way. And I'm glad that the first deck that I purchased that was more pippish was an inexpensive one, because it's allowed me to kind of play with the idea and see how I like reading that way without like a big investment in money. And so far, I can definitely read with it, but it is a little bit more of a challenge. So I think I lean toward having more scenic minors overall. But it's nice to have a little bit of variety in my collection. Okay, and then we have, I think, my last 2 decks. Now these are both independent decks, and actually they are decks I carry in my self-care shop, so you'll see that listed down below in the description box. I've started an aspect of it that's tarot and oracle related, and I'm trying to carry a little variety of decks that I think are really beautiful and that are maybe like unusual and can't be found super easily everywhere. And so this is, I should probably tell you what deck it is, huh? It is the Accurate AF Tarot. This is a nice box with this like gold gilding. This is actually my only circular deck. That is what it looks like. It's sort of a pale pink. It's a little hard to see in this lighting. It has the really nice matte gold gilding as well. And I actually really like this deck. I find it to be a very clear reader, and because it does have some keywords, I feel like it's good for like that for a beginner, yet it's not super standard. So it has like a little bit of a twist on it. Let's see. The art, the colors are very like soft and pastel-y. Sorry, they're like so soft you kind of can't see in the, that's the 2 of Cups. The cards aren't necessarily super thick, but they're very bendable, and a nice like soft matte finish. And they feel durable, although they're not super thick necessarily. Yeah, and I don't know if I completed the thought that although the art on it is quite soft and I think it's good for a beginner, I also feel like it's pretty like straightforward in its messages, which is nice. It's not like overly harsh or anything, but just like, okay, this is what's going on. Pay attention. Okay, so that's the Accurate AF Tarot, and that's by Prism and Floor Design, by the way. And then I also have the Soul Cards by Christine Freedom, Karina Nika, and Eva Eklund. And this is once again another deck that I'm carrying in my self-care shop, which is down below in the description box. And I have all 3 versions right now. So this is the blush pink version. There's also a midnight black version and a white dahlia version. This is the box, and then this is the back. Beautiful like flower print. It's also very like smooth and velvety matte cardstock. It has that matte gold gilding as well. And then this card is much more, these cards are much more less scenic, a little bit more pip-like, and a little bit more just focusing on these gorgeous designs. So I would say so far in my experience, I'm not sure this would be a great deck for like a total beginner to learn on. I think that would be kind of challenging. But once you have a good basis in tarot, if you're just looking for something really beautiful and that feels super luxe, this is a really nice deck. It's also super pretty in the midnight black. Wheel of Fortune. So you can definitely, like, once you look at the cards, this is Strength, you can for sure see the connection to the Rider-Waite in the designs and in the image, but it's like very like stylized, and I don't know how else to describe it, but pretty. Okay. So I think we've made it through all of my tarot decks for February 2021. I hope you enjoyed this video and seeing which decks I have. I'd be curious to know what decks you have, or if you have any similar ones as I do, what decks you'd like to get. I definitely have a long list of decks I would like to purchase at this point. So hopefully I'll be adding to my collection soon. If you have any questions, please do let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please like the video and feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you so that you get notified of any videos that I do. I do weekly readings, tarot and oracle card readings. I'm also planning a bunch of videos on spirituality, intuition development, wellness, self-care, all kinds of topics. So I hope I will see you next time.